addiction, and this isn't just a problem, it's a crisis. Let's tackle more as we proceed with our presentation. Now, let's meet the brains behind this presentation. I'm Micaela Cernande, Evie Joyce Banatao, Jenny Pearl Galdo, Karen Jane Soriano, and Pooja, under our amazing professor, Silvana Salerno.
For the learning objectives, number 1, understand the scope of cannabis addiction in urban teenagers. Second, analyze the community assessment methods. For the third one, evaluate the community strengths, challenges, and stakeholders. Fourth, discuss the ethical considerations and advocacy strategies. Lastly, apply knowledge to develop effective solutions.
Let's learn by watching this video.
In the United States, according to a 2018 survey, 1 in 8 adolescents aged 12 to 17 consumed marijuana in the past year. In 12th grade, about 1 in 16 do so daily. So what's the problem? Even super smart people smoke, right? Let's look at the effect of cannabis on a teenager's brain. The brain's response to counter the effects of THC impairs its attention, its ability to remember, and its potential for learning. These effects can last up to several days. This would not be such a problem if our brain ran like a machine, but that's not the case. The brain is a living organism, maybe the most precious one there is. In teenagers, that organism is still immature. It takes about 25 years for the human brain to be fully developed. This is why when teenagers and adults argue, they often come to different conclusions. There is a biological reason for that. Adults have a fully developed prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that is responsible for judgment and an awareness of long-term consequences. The cortex of teenagers is still growing. They are more influenced by their already matured limbic system, which responds to fears and emotions. If the developing brain is exposed to a lot of THC, the part responsible for controlling emotions may never reach its full potential. This can have long-term consequences and effects on one's measurable intelligence, learning, and judgment. One study that followed 13-year-olds for 25 years has found that those who regularly consume marijuana lose on average 5.8 IQ points by the time they reach adulthood. Since our average IQ is just 100, that is enough to shut the door to a good college or close the opportunity to work at a great company. But that's not all. There is also evidence that some teenagers that use cannabis are at higher risk of developing depression or even a psychosis. A psychosis changes the way the brain processes information and causes you to lose touch with reality. You can see and hear things that aren't real and may completely lose your mind. In short, the high of cannabis comes with a multitude of side effects. Some might be fun, some might be healing, and some are potentially horrible. We don't always know. If you want to live life with the ultimate learning machine inside your head, you might want to wait until your mind is fully developed before trying weed. What are your thoughts? Did you ever try cannabis as a teenager? And if so, do you think it did damage to your mind?
Hello everyone. Today we are going to draw your attention to a growing public health concern, cannabis addiction among teenage in urban area, especially in Toronto. This issue demands urgent attention due to its significant physical, mental and social consequences. We have chosen to focus on this topic because Canada has one of the highest rate of youth cannabis use in the world. Research shows that 37% of the adolescents aged 16 to 19 have reported using cannabis. Early use of cannabis increase the risk of addiction, mental health issue, and long-term cognitive impairment. So let's discuss why is this an urban issue. Teenagers in urban area like Toronto face higher risk of cannabis exposure due to its greater accessibility, with 80.2% Canadian living in cities. The high density of dispensaries, peer influence, and online platform make it easier for the teens to access the drug despite legal age restrictions. So now I'll be discussing parameter of the selected community. So the first is age group. Adolescent aged 12 to 19 years are the focus because many young people start using cannabis at an early age. Early exposure increase the risk of dependency and long-term health effect. Second, we have the location. So the GTA has over 6.7 million people, making it a major hub for the youth cannabis use. The city also has high density of cannabis dispensaries, which make access easier to teenagers despite legal age restrictions. Third, we have prevalence of cannabis use in teenagers. Among Toronto youth, approximately 37% have used cannabis. Many adolescents experiment with cannabis before the age of 15, often influenced by the peer pressure and social norms. Fourth, we have urban environmental factor contributing to the cannabis use. So high accessibility remains a major factor in adolescent cannabis use. Teenagers often obtain cannabis through social network, online platform, and illegal sales. Mental health pressure, including academic stress, social expectation, and financial struggle, also contribute to increased cannabis use as a coping mechanism. So last we have population statistics in Canada. So the teenager population age 15 to 19 in Toronto is approximately 280,000. The city highly urbanized environment increase the risk of adolescent exposure to the cannabis use, making it a pressing public health concern.
The first step in addressing cannabis addiction among teenagers in urban areas is conducting a needs for assessment to gather relevant data and identify the key issues. We have different approaches and methods to be used. First, we have the surveys and questionnaires. Second, we have the focus groups and interviews. The third one is the windshield surveys. Lastly, we have the existing data review. To analyze the collected data, we use community mapping to locate the high-risk areas, epidemiological analysis to study the trends and the risk factors. Lastly, we have the SWOT analysis to assess strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats related to the cannabis addiction and intervention programs. After assessing the problem, the next step is developing a community-based strategies and utilizing available resources, which is first, the educational institutions. Second, we have the healthcare and mental health services. The third one is the community organizations. Lastly, the policy and government support. A well-structured needs assessment is essential to developing targeted interventions that address cannabis addiction among teenagers in urban areas. By collaborating with the schools, healthcare professionals, community leaders, and policymakers, we can create sustainable solutions that promote healthier choices for the youth and young people.
Community assessment, why and how. A community assessment helps us understand teen cannabis use, find risk factors, and see where support is needed. It also helps us work with schools, health agencies, and community groups to create better solutions. What we focus on and where we get data. We look at how many teens use cannabis, why they use it, what support exists. We use health reports, school surveys, community programs, and law enforcement data to find gaps and improve services. With the right data, we can help urban teens make healthier choices. Community strength. Our community has key strength to support youth. First, many cities run public health campaigns to reduce substance use. Second, some areas have a strong mental health and addiction services for those who need help. Lastly, schools and community centers provide spaces for education and support. Community challenges. Our community faces challenges in addressing teen cannabis use. First, easy access to cannabis. from dispensaries and unregulated sources increases youth exposure. Second, social normalization makes cannabis seem low risk, leading to higher use. Third, limited harm reduction awareness means not all teens get proper education on their risks. Finally, barriers to mental health services prevent some youth, especially in marginalized communities, from getting the support they need. Recognizing these challenges helps us create better solutions for youth.
Capacity building strategies. To strengthen community response to teenage cannabis addiction, capacity building strategies should focus on: first, education and awareness. This implements evidence-based programs in schools and communities. Next is skill development, like training educators, parents, and leaders to recognize and address cannabis use. Another is a resource allocation. This is to advocate for funding to support prevention and treatment programs. Finally, policy development, working with policy makers to regulate dispensaries and advertising, creating a safer environment. Through this, we can protect and empower our youth. Existing organizations and services. Several organizations in Toronto are dedicated to preventing youth substance use and providing support. Toronto Public Health offers educational programs, while the Center for Addiction and Mental Health provides treatment and guidelines for safer cannabis use. Local community centers also play a key role by offering recreational activities and counseling, helping to keep the youth engaged and supported. Preventing youth cannabis use requires key influencers and decision makers like gatekeepers that influence youth and policy decisions. Examples are schools that integrates education and early interventions, families' awareness to support at-risk teens, community leaders that promote preventions, and healthcare workers that provide treatments and harm reduction. Also, stakeholders are organizations and policymakers that shapes the response, like public health authorities that fund programs, policymakers which advocates for stronger youth protection, and law enforcement that ensures community safety without excessive criminalization.
In this slide, we'll tackle about communication strategies, and we have three. First is collaborative meetings, community forums and workshops focusing on open dialogue and collaborative solutions. Second is surveys and focus groups wherein we'll collect direct input from teenagers like anonymous surveys or focus groups for relevant strategies. And lastly, regular updates. Transparent communication like newsletters, social media, and community boards for ongoing engagement. Inclusive community assessment. In this slide, we have 4 parts. Number 1 is overlooked voices. Marginalized youth, parents, educators, and community leaders offer unique perspectives, often missing from mainstream assessments. Number 2 is inclusive engagement. We'll use focus groups, community forums, collaborations, and anonymous surveys to capture diverse viewpoints. Number 3 is assessment methods. Surveys offer wide reach. Focus groups provide detailed insights. Windshield surveys offer environmental context. Limitations include low response rates for survey, dominant voices for focus groups, and lack of personal experience for windshield surveys. We'll also use photo voice and peer-led workshops. And number 4 is ethical considerations. Confidentiality, informed consent, and cultural sensitivity, transparency, and participant well-being are paramount in this topic. In conclusion, teen cannabis addiction in urban areas in Toronto is driven by accessibility, peer pressure, and social factors. Community assessments help identify risks and gaps in support. Targeted education, policies, and services can reduce addiction and improve youth well-being. While the challenges are significant, we believe that through community collaboration and targeted action, we can create a healthier future for the teens in urban areas.